right, guys, welcome back, everyone, to another inspiring episode of the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. My name is Sam Nang, lifestyle and performance coach, hybrid athlete, and philosopher. And today we're diving deep into a transformative power of movement, mindset, and mastery. So, here on the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, we're all about elevating the collective vibrations and unlocking the highest potential in each and every one of us. And today's guest is a true master of that craft. Join us in welcoming who doesn't talk about change, but he embodies it. Literally, Damilare Adeyeri is a powerhouse of inspiration, a motivational speaker, life coach, dance and fitness instructor, and an IRONMAN athlete. Born in Nigeria, Damilare's journey has taken him across 30 countries, 8 different homes, spanning continents from Africa to North America, where he spread the joy of movement, transformation to every corner of the globe. From the heart-pumping energy of gyms, dance studios, to the strategic environments of boardrooms and conference halls, Damilare has inspired hundreds of thousands of people worldwide across 50-plus events and reaching audience in over 190 countries. Whether he's lighting up the stage as a featured TEDx speaker or fostering team unity through his peak performance movement seminars, Damilare's impact is profound and far-reaching. But his journey doesn't stop there. As a contributor to the best-selling anthology Dance Adventures, true stories about dancing abroad, and with dual master's degree in cross-cultural international education, dance anthropology, and ethnochoreology. I'm telling you, I had to practice that word like 10 times. Damilare truly understands the power of movement, not just as a physical exercise, but as a way to connect cultures, build communities, and enhance mental wellness. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he balances his life with his wife in Tampa Bay, Florida, where his wife Abby are raising 2 kids and their Australian Shepherd mix. Today, we're going to explore how Damilare harnesses the power of movement to inspire joy, foster inclusivity, and promote both personal and professional growth. So get ready to feel the energy, embrace the flow as we welcome the incredible Damilare to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. Welcome. How was that? How was it?
Even for me listening to that, I was like, that's a mouthful. Hey.
Hey, I watched the podcast with some good introductions.
Thank you. And actually it makes me very both proud and grateful to hear about the experiences, right? Because I think it's very easy to kind of downplay how much we've done in our lives. And hearing that just puts me in a place of both. You know, I'm thankful that I could have achieved as much and also just a little bit like, hey, okay, well, not bad. Not
bad. Honest truth, like I saw your resume. I mean, I saw your stuff. We met on the RMT Robbins Madonna's training life coaching certification. That's where we met.
Correct.
We were just discussing on the Facebook group, and I think earlier before the show, we started discussing about how big of an influence Tony Robbins has been on me, your life, and a lot of the guests that I've been having on Tony Robbins has been a big part of influence on everybody because he's such a powerful person. Yeah. So maybe let's start about like where we met, in the RMT training, and I like you've been crushing it. So I've been inspired. So I really wanted to get you on the show and talk about your experience.
Absolutely. So RMT training, which we call RMT, stands for Robbins Madonna's Training, which is the official coaching school of Tony Robbins and Chloe Madonna's. And a lot of people may already know Tony as the number one, life strategist, philanthropist, businessman, coach in the world. And Chloe Madonna's is the founder of the Strategic Family Intervention Therapy, amidst many other accolades that she has had. So yes. Tony and Chloe came together to bring their resources, expertise, and wisdom to create a coaching school where individuals like myself can learn these strategies to help people make a difference in their lives. So that's how we met. We met because I also took the training. I think I did mine between 2019 and 2020. And I just stayed in touch as an alumni in the group. So I've had my certification for 4 years now. But I stayed engaged, and so I meet new people going through the training, and I stay connected.
Yeah, you're definitely connected, and you're an alumni. I didn't realize. I just recently did my 100, completed it maybe like 3 months ago, but
Yeah.
I've been incorporating into my coaching as well too, and I'm still doing the 200. So constantly training and consistently and everything. So one thing, as you develop your own coaching and peak performance with like dance and everything, how did you apply some of those strategies, like the intervention strategies, into your coaching and your own business now?
Absolutely. So one of the things we learn during the interventions that we teach is the triad, right? So the triad is the pattern of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And there are three key elements to the triad. One of it is the physiology, how we're using our body, right?
Yeah.
And that goes everywhere from, the person on my shoulders down here or up, it changes the way I'm feeling, right? So that's the first pattern. The second one is the focus, right? What we focus on, we feel, like Tony would say, right? So
Yeah.
whatever I'm focusing on is impacting how I'm feeling in the moment. And the third one, actually, not just the focus, but also the beliefs, right? So our focus and the beliefs go side by side because the belief is, if you think about it more like an iceberg, the
Mm-hmm.
belief is what is underlining what we focus on in the moment because it's
Yes.
almost always what we're considering important in the moment.
Yes. Yes.
Focus. And then the third part of the triad of our pattern of emotion is the language and meaning. So the words and phrases we're using to describe our experience and the meaning we're making of it. So those three things are the patterns of emotion. And so for me, particularly, the way I've incorporated it is the movement, right? Coming from a dance
Movement.
and
Yes.
fitness background, I understand physiology. Like I know the difference between a day that you worked out and a day that you did not. A
Yeah.
day that you move your
Okay.
body and that you did not. And it's not just moving your body, even breathing, right? The power of the breath. And I would ask this question, which is very easy. If you see two people walking on the street, right? One of them shoulder down, heads is down, eyes looking a little dim, and I ask you, how are they feeling?
Yeah.
The
That way, you're
answer,
bringing the vibrations up a little bit.
exactly. The answer is almost always they're feeling sad, depressed, not too good, versus, okay, sitting up straight, shoulder back, chest up, head is up, eyes looking straight. They're feeling much better, confident, you could say happy, joyful, and things like that. So a lot of what I do starts from helping people change their physiology because the quickest way to change how we're feeling is to move our body.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to do that makes other parts of the coaching, so to say, easier because then when we've uplifted the emotion, then we can really speak into, the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious and other things going on there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. That was like a big takeaway. Everybody takes a little bit different things away from the coaching programs. And I noticed, like, I've been to Tony Robbins' event. I went to one, and I've seen him a lot. And he really does start his events with just getting the energy up, the vibrations up, and I understand how important it is. And sometimes I think a lot of people see it from the outside that it's just like pep rallies and motivation and stuff, but the physiology part of the way you just explained it, it's so important for people that you can instantly change at a moment. And Tony Robbins says that all the time. It's like you change your physiology and your focus goes to where you're at. And if you're at an event and you're dancing or you're in your classes and stuff, it's your vibrations are coming up and the way you speak, right? Those are starting to sink in with people's mind and subconscious a lot more. I think that's a great message. I think that's the reason why we kind of resonated with it. And I enjoy dancing myself. I'm not a professional dancer or anything at all. I dance in my living room in my studios. But tell us a little bit about the dancing, how you got into. And I noticed that you were chief
State inducer.
chief state inducer for Tony Robbins, which is incredible. It's like, tell us a
You know,
little bit about that experience. I want to hear about that.
before
Meaning the big
before
guy.
before I talk about that, I actually really want to emphasize even more the power of movement
Yeah.
because it's not just dancing, right? It's the ability to move our body to music in a joyful emotional state. Now, when we think about our patterns of emotion, I tell my clients, you cannot fight the mind with the mind. What do I
Yeah.
mean? If the chatter right now is coming and telling you, limiting beliefs or, stories that are not empowering, like, oh my gosh, you're so silly. Why would you have done that?
Yeah.
You're not enough, you're not worthy. In that moment, if you are trying to speak positive words to yourself, it's kind of like one says, "Oh, you're not worthy." One says, "No, I'm enough." One says, "Oh, you're just so silly." It's like, "No, I'm not silly." And then you're going back and forth. Within the mind, you can easily just become overwhelmed and crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so to change that pattern, you need to get out of the head into the body,
Yeah.
right? And that's so much the power of the movement. And exercise science tells us that when we move our body, it increases circulation, which is the blood flow,
Yeah.
right? We breathe more. It increases the happy hormones, right? Like the endorphins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even like the serotonin, like, oxytocin when we're dancing together in a group with people, the bonding hormone. And so it's like you were instantly being quote unquote drugged with the good kind of drugs, right?
Yeah.
Which your body is naturally producing. And so you are immediately changing your state by just getting out of your head into your body. And what oftentimes people take for granted is that in those moments of changing, Tony calls it your state,
Yes.
is that when you think about your past experiences, we remember more. The nervous system remembers more experiences that have high emotional association,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right? Which is why trauma lingers, because bad experiences bring high or peak emotional experiences, feelings from a negative side, right? And I'm very careful when I name emotions negatively. So, like, let me say from an unpleasant side. The same way, peak experiences from a positive emotional state, we remember that. And movement is the one thing that could quickly help us check it out, right?
Yeah.
Either from an unpleasant to a pleasant state. And so understanding that alone, if anybody listening to or watching this podcast understands that, is that the quickest way to change how you're feeling is a radical shift in your
Your
body, a
body, your
radical
movement.
movement,
Yeah.
right? And so I really wanted to press that in because it's so important.
It
Now,
is important. So let me. I got something when you first said it. It's like you can't fight emotion with emotion, or is
you
it
can't
mental
find
with
the
mental?
mind with the mind. You cannot
Yeah, you
fight
can't.
the. It's like a conversation with each other within itself, and you're like, who do I listen to?
Yes,
Which voice?
that is a great point. You can't fight the mind with the mind. It's something that you got to actually. I think you're trying to fight the mind, and then you're trying to bring your physiology or your physical to kind of align with it, right? That's kind of like what the physical movement is. Like some people work out, like I work out, I dance. I think some people dance more, but I think you're bringing that mind where like you want it to say something good to and then bringing that heightened experience with your physiology, so it like links up, right? Is that kind of like what we're talking about with the
Yeah.
mind versus
So
mind?
essentially, what I'm saying is get out of the mind into the body,
Yeah.
because while you're having those voices arguing in your head, it's overwhelming and it's harder to try to find one to dominate the other.
Yeah.
But you can calm it down by simply getting out of the head into the body, which then brings a higher emotional state and puts you in a much more, I would say, connected or associated state where you can have clearer thoughts and clarity overall.
Yeah. How do you so I think one thing is that like sometimes people feel silly, right? I think that's one of the feeling that people get. I've even get it. Like, man, I'm feeling like shit today. And I was like, do I feel like dancing? You feel silly. I think it's something that you just have to like force yourself or just be around people that have this type of energy and really just be around and be inspired by it. I don't know. How do you work with people that are just like, it does go up and down, right?
Yeah,
Motivation, like I had a podcast, I was just talking about motivation goes up and down, but you have to be disciplined with your movement and stuff. So I think that
correct.
ties into your physical background as well too, right?
Yes, so I mean it's silly. People may feel silly when they hear the word dance or move, right? And we can go all in onto how that is a limited belief, how that is judgment, fear of judgment
Mm-hmm.
or society, and this is even judgment on ourselves, right?
Yep.
For my coaching clients, what I do is we don't even start with dancing. I just say, hey, all right, guess what? You know it's coming. And my client says, I know, 50 jumping jacks. And I'm saying, yes, 50 jumping jacks. Let's go. And so immediately we get the same effect, right? We're going jumping jacks up and up and up. we're vigorously moving our body, which helps us change the state because it automatically brings the body into an active state of movement.
Right.
And then I'm counting and I'm going, right, 50, 40, 30, we're going. And then when we get to like 20, I add an additional element of humor, which they often don't expect. So I go 20, 19, 19, 19, 19, 15, 25. And then they crack up laughing. What did I do? I interrupted the pattern, right? It's part of what we learn in our
Yes.
IRONMAN training, right? By also using humor. So I'm in that moment, I started with movements to change their state. I also added humor to it. And so we end up there feeling elated in a better emotional state.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And just like interrupting the pattern, like you're definitely very experienced in those strategic interventions, even to just include it into your own style. I do that in my own coaching as well too. Is sometimes you get really dark and deep, and then you have to bring it up and change the mood a little bit.
Yep.
And like when we're talking about state changes, that is a big thing. Is that you could instantly do that, and after watching like Tony do those strategic interventions is where like, he can use it by changing tonality. He can use it by tapping into different emotions and interrupting patterns and using comedy as well too. I think comedy changes your physiology and your state as well too. And I love, people that make jokes and just kind of take lighthearted things, because at the end of the day, like you could look at life being very hard, or you could look at it like a funny, joyful outlook. And I think, that's why I think we connected, is like there's joy in our message and what we want to share with everything as well. So I think that's neat that you're sharing your experience. That's an alumni right there.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, but see, the thing is, like, I didn't realize when I joined the RMT coaching program that it was almost like school, where I started to connect with the people in the community, and everybody's very like-minded, right? They might be doing something very individual. Like we have a classmate that's, a documentary, a futurist, and which I'm learning from as well too. And I know you know who she is, and really connecting with other people. And I didn't realize it was almost kind of like a postgraduate degree, and I never thought of myself as an academic or anything, but I just been really connecting with people and really vibing, seeing what their philosophies and how they incorporate it into their life. So you're very also have a physical background too, a triathlete or Ironman, and I'm aware. How many have you done?
So great question. So I have done one full Ironman, which is a full distance.
It's still it's really hard.
It is really hard. I have done 3 half distances. So full, I have done Ironman Chattanooga, which is 144.4 miles. Ironman Chattanooga has a longer bike course than the rest. And then I've done Ironman 70.3 Sydney. I've done Ironman 70.3 Florida. I've also done what is called the GFT, Great Florida Triathlon. So I did the half distance for that as well. And then I've done what is called an Olympic distance triathlon. So I did that also. I forget what it's called now. It's in St. Petersburg in Florida. St. Anthony's triathlon, done that as well. And then done 2 sprints, I say. So, I mean, overall, you
kind of built up to it, right?
Yes. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That's a whole different story. Not necessarily. But I've done quite a number of triathlon. But before we're talking triathlon, actually, so I wanted to flow right from having talked about physiology and state to the question you asked me about dancing on Tony's stage, being the chief state inducer.
Yeah, actually, I was going to go back in it. Yeah, let's talk about that.
I remember you asked me that question. And so for me, my first live UPW, which is Unleash the Power Within, which is one of Tony's signature program, was Miami in November of 2019. So having come from a background where I know how to dance, I enjoy dancing, and I also actually have an international master's in dance knowledge, practice, and heritage, I was so enamored and excited to see dance or movement as one of the opening that Tony does at his event. DJ plays music, it gets us all up, and then we're moving and dancing. So I was really excited about it. And in that event, I told myself, I would love to be in front of an audience leading 13,000 people in movement. And I chose 13,000 because there were 13,000 of us in the venue in that moment. In that moment, I had no immediate connection that it was going to be at a Tony event. And so if you've been to, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like,
So if you've been to Unleash the Power Within, day 2, we do what is called closing the gap momentum, right?
okay.
And so we write, what do you want? Why do you want it? And, just kind of like, how do you close the gap, right? So what's going to take you from where you are to where you want to go? And so I wrote it down that I see myself leading dance fitness in front of 13,000 people. I wrote out my why, to create a difference, to help people feel joy, to catalyze transformation in people. And so after the event, I started researching different ways where I could have that opportunity. I'm a licensed Zumba instructor, so I thought it was going to be a Zumba event. So I looked it up and I saw that as of then, which was the Zumba, the world record for the largest Zumba event was in Philippines, and it was 12,975 people.
Oh, that's why you said 13,000?
No. I said 13,000 because there were 13,000 of us at UPW Miami.
Yeah.
So when I found that the world record was less than 13,000, I told myself, no, we're looking for more. But anyway, so I kept the dream. I kept it, associated, keep looking for other ways. And of course, kept training, kept teaching classes. And then in 2020 was when Tony moved into virtual events.
Yes.
And
that
so
was around the pandemic.
Exactly.
When the pandemic started. Yes, I understand that.
Exactly. And so looking at the virtual events, they now had a new dance group up on stage then. And then every time the dance group was on stage, I would look at the camera, I'd point to myself, I'd be like, that's my spot.
Yeah.
Wow,
you're really manifesting it.
Really manifesting it, just playfully, in that emotional state of like joy and also doing the work. It's like, that's my spot. To cut long story short, I joined Tony's company as a coach in 2021. So I was in the company working as a results coach when I ended up working for 3 years as a results coach. And 6 months into working as a coach, they changed the dance group.
Yeah.
So it became a new dance group in another of Tony's events called Business Mastery.
Yes.
So I watched Business Mastery. I said it was a new group, and I actually saw at that event. Many people know her as KK. Her name is Carissa Kuchis. I saw that Carissa in that one event led the dancers in some of the set. So I got really excited. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is my chance to finally get on stage to help.
Yeah.
So 5 days after the event, I emailed internally using my coach email to KK, Carissa. I said, hey, Carissa, great job. You're an MC, you're a trainer, you're, sales professional. You're just so talented. You really inspire me. I saw you dancing on stage. And by the way, I'm also a dancer. I have all this 12 plus years experience. And here's a video of me leading dancing Zumba in front of the Michigan Stadium, which is the largest college football stadium. Exactly. And I said, here's a video, share with the team. If they need any help, I'm happy to jump in and help. That was it. And same day, she replied my email and said, oh my gosh, thanks for reaching out. You're talented. I'll forward it to the team. If they need any help, they will let you know. And then same day, the head of production reached out to me and said, hey, can we connect on phone? Yeah. Long story short, 2 weeks later, I was on the stage.
Wow. Yeah. Literally it happened.
Literally happened.
And thought about it at one of the Tony Robbins event, wrote it down. Between when you wrote it down to when it happened, what was the time span? But you focused a lot of your attention to it.
Correct. So from when I wrote it down was November 2019. Mm-hmm. When I was then on stage was February of 2022.
Okay. About 3 years.
So it was about 2.5 years, right? Yeah. However, we cannot rush manifestation.
You can't.
At the same time, it's when you have a vision and a goal, you just keep doing the work because it's beyond the goal, right? The goal itself is one thing. Who you are becoming in the process and the impact you're making is even much more important.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so for me, it was really about the continuous journey of making impact, the continuous journey of using movement as a way of inspiring people to joy and energy and momentum and making a difference in their lives. So for me, I stayed within that up until the point where I then had the opportunity to become a stage. And once I started dancing on stage with Tony, I became the face. I became the main guy, where every event I was there, And so coming back to how Tony uses movement as a key way to get people into I would say, what's the word? A transformative state.
Mm-hmm. Right, kind of like ready to receive the information. I think he calls it priming, where you get your body ready for it, you're in the right state, and then all the information that he's gonna like tell you and all the work, it sticks more. I think that's kind of what the science behind it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it already today.
Yeah.
It's like the nervous system is much more open to receiving when we're in a peak emotional state.
Yes.
Be it positive or otherwise. And so the work that I did there, I was sort of like the catalyst for transformation.
That's
right.
Awesome.
So by bringing the people together into a high vibrational energy state through movement of joy, then they're ready to receive their breakthroughs. They're ready to receive their transformations. They're ready to learn the content that Tony is there to present to the people. And over the 4 days, I mean, they get their transformation, they get their breakthrough, which is why, I like the name, the chief state inducer, because really what we're doing there is inducing state. What we're really doing there is influencing people's emotions into a peak emotional state such that they could receive their breakthrough.
Yeah. Did you or Tony come up with that name, or did somebody else come up with that title? I like it. When you told me that, I was like,
I did not. It's not original. I did not come up with a name. It's actually something that is used in the Tony world, I would say, state inducer. However, Tony came up with that name because when you read Tony's second book, Awaken the Giant Within, he uses state inducer in that book.
Okay. Yeah, this whole podcast is about Tony Robbins.
hey. I mean,
that is what brought us here together to this event. It's like, I literally so the other day I was filling out a podcast form for a friend of mine, and I was like, who would be your like number one dream guest to have on the podcast? I'd be like, it was Tony Robbins, right? Because he's had such a big influence. So like I have you and I have everybody that, that really has been influenced by him.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, for me, it's been a blessing, right? It's been a blessing and an opportunity to be able to work in his mission, right? Because at the end of the day, his mission is to end suffering in the world. And part of that is all he does, helping people transform their life for better. And so having the opportunity to have been a piece of the puzzle through coaching the clients, through leading them into a peak emotional state on stage through movement, it's sort of like also me fulfilling my own purpose within his own mission. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all feel kind of like that. We're part of something greater than what we are, because there's a little bit of like spiritual side to it as well too. I want to talk about something that you brought up a very good point when you were manifesting, or when you first started at the event, wrote it down, started doing that, and then started focusing your attention towards possibly doing this. It's a feat that like you broke a world record. Did you just break a Guinness World Record by just focusing on it and just putting all your attention in it? But there was like a 3-year gap in between. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the time, that's where people kind of quit, right? If we start to do like a transformation or go into a coaching program similar and working with somebody, starting to identify some of the limiting beliefs and start putting down information or like goals and visions that they want. That gap is where it gets very rocky, right? Or it gets like up and down. Maybe some people quit, some people just kind of give up on those goals, and some people get to where they want, right? And the point that you made, I really, really love it, is that maybe you might not get on stage, maybe you might not make it to that certain thing, but that person that you become in a process of trying to close that gap, I think it's very important. Guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. My name is Sam Nang, and I just wanted to take a moment and thank you guys for listening to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. It's been great to have your support, and I want to tell you a little bit more how you can support the community and how we can support you as well too. So, if you like the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, the message that we're putting out, the information, the content, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel on Spotify. Please like it. Please share it. Please share an inspiring message. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get the message out to people that need it. So that would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you are in need of more personal development support in those areas of physical fitness, nutrition, mindset, spirituality, anything in that type of area, please book a discovery call with us. We'd love to help you. We'll get some time on the schedule to chat about what your struggles are, how we can help you, and we'd love to support you in that way. And if you are interested in being a part of being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. If you have an inspiring story, you have something that you want to share, if you have a message that resonates that's similar to what we're sharing here on the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, we welcome you to be part of our show. We're super excited where the growth and the community is growing. So we look forward to having you here, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you guys so much for the continued support and the love. And we'll continue to keep putting out the good vibrations out there to help elevate the collective vibrations. And thank you guys so much. In personal development, because you become
Absolutely.
more resilient, become more stronger, you become more courageous, and personal development stuff. I think I want to bring it out with this podcast that it has a lot to do with success and psychology and everything. And the way you talked about bridging that gap, it might not happen. It's the same with me. I tell people, it's like you manifest something, you start to believe something, you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. And your story of like how you got on stage by just simply thinking about it and just putting the work in as well too, it's very inspiring. But Tony Robbins, yes, he's our mentor, coach, and we also, like I said, we feel like we're part of the mission, sharing what he's taught us. And for my background is like he influenced me by I read his first book in college, and that's kind of what inspired me. And as I
Unlimited
went through my
power. Yeah.
Unlimited Power, and that's a very powerful book for me. I think it's like my first big personal development book that I read. I didn't read all of it, but it made such a great impact on my life and the trajectory of where I am now, doing the coaching program and incorporating it into my life and becoming a remote coach and doing this podcast as well too. The podcast is one of my favorite things that I've been doing with the remote coaching. But for UPW and Tony Robbins, something that you've done that I think is super cool, because I'm not a great swimmer myself. I'm a terrible swimmer. So I'm like negative buoyant. I'm full of muscle. I probably walk around like 10-12% body fat. So I'm very dense, right? So you throw me into like a swimming pool or like a lake, I'm probably going to be flowing for a little bit, but I'm definitely going to be struggling. So how did you overcome that? How did Tony or like some of these events overcome? Because swimming is definitely
Yeah. No, actually, in this case, we can talk about the Ironman right now, and
yeah, we could
it,
talk about that and lean into the Ironman. Yeah.
it's a great segue because I was never a swimmer either. I
Yeah.
did not learn swimming growing up. In fact, I almost drowned as a teenager in the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow. Was it
Right?
traumatic?
Yes, it was. It really was, because unfortunately, and I think about it, we just, empathy and also sadness a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and gratitude, because I also lost a childhood friend in that incident.
Oh,
Right.
I'm
And so
sorry.
for me, it was not an incident or an experience that I wanted to remember because of just how much grief that it brought. Okay. And not just me. I also lost a guy who went to a church, died in a pool incident. Both my brother and my sister almost drowned. So with so many water hazard, in our consciousness in our environment, my mom did everything she could to keep us away from water because she didn't want to lose any kids, right?
Right.
And it made sense. So I grew up not knowing how to swim. Then, as an adult, I realized I cannot forever be like this, right? Swimming is a survival skill, And the way through the fear is through it. The way to overcome the fear is through it. The more I run away from it, the more I'm not able to overcome it. So I thought to myself, what would be a way to overcome this fear? And the short answer was, you've got to learn how to swim. You've got to learn how to swim.
Right.
And because I was already cycling as a hobby, and I kind of run, but it wasn't like full-time running, but I run. I told myself, you can only complete a triathlon if you know how to swim. It's the first event of the race. And so to challenge myself, I decided I needed to sign up for a triathlon, because in doing a triathlon, I had to learn how to swim, right? So basically, I tricked my mind. I didn't just say, oh, I need to go learn how to swim to overcome this fear. I said, I need to learn how to swim to get this goal, right? Yeah. And I'm going to pause for a moment and put the learning in that. We have to understand ourselves, right? Because we are either running towards something or away from something. It's like how Tony talks about, our towards and away goals. And just for anyone listening right now, take a quick stock of the things you've achieved in your life, right? We're either running towards something or away from something, which is the principle of being motivated by either pain or by pleasure. And I understand for myself, I am more motivated when I'm working towards something rather than away from something. Right. So in that instance, it wasn't
even when you're scared, though. I mean, that's scary. Like, you're like, I gotta jump in the water.
Right? Yes. Even when you're scared.
Even when you're scared.
Yep. So I decided to start asking my friends who've done triathlon and say, hey, kind of tell me, what is it like? How does it go?
Yeah.
And so I started, figuratively dipping my toes in the water to understand. And then I talked to one of my friends who is an IRONMAN coach and also a results coach, and said, hey, you have a race in 2 weeks. Can I come and watch the race so that I have a feel of how it goes to understand, and prepare myself before I go? And you know what she told me? She said, no, you're not allowed to come. And I said, why? She said, well, if you're going to come, you might as well participate. I said, you're kidding me, right?
You can't just be a fan.
She said, no, you can't just be a spectator. She said there's a super sprint, which is like the shortest distance, right? Like 100-meter swim.
Like a starter.
Right, yeah, 100-meter swim. It was like a 5-mile bike and a 1-mile run. She said, because the only way to know if you're really going to like and enjoy this is actually to participate in it. She said, you will be fine, which is another rule for any growth work. Having people in your network who push you, who support you, who challenge you is kind of like turbocharging your growth.
Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, that's important. And so I went and I decided to do the super sprint because she literally dared me, and I was like, okay. And oh my gosh, it was open water swim in the ocean. It was here in Florida, just south of Venice, Florida. And I drank ocean water, and I just could not swim, because I could not swim. I knew a little bit of like breaststroke. So at the end of the day, I just kept my head above water, and I just kept telling myself, this is not the day I'm going to die. This is not the day I'm going to die. That's it. But I surprised myself. Because the moment I got out of the water and I was safe on land, I got on the bike and I just killed it on the bike. And then on the run, and even though it was a small race, in my category, there were 10 of us, I ended up becoming first in my first ever triathlon. In my sprint.
Confidence.
Super sprint, the little one. And so I was just full of all these positive emotions, which is also a great way to overcome fear of something, because once you give yourself little exposure to that thing and you gather the wins, you build more confidence to go even deeper.
Yeah.
And for me, that was it. So coming first in the super sprint, I became even much more confident and excited to try even longer distances. And I went through the process. So I signed up for swim classes. I was going to the swim, which is what, massive action, right? I was going to swim classes 3 times a week. I had a triathlon coach to help me with all the planning and the training
Yeah.
plan. I signed up for races, and I just kept working through till I worked up myself to actually doing a full Ironman within a year. Within
Wow.
a year, going from non-swimmer to doing a full Ironman within a year, and the whole experience of the race is just a whole different thing. Because I mean, getting to the race, it rained on that day. I was wet and shivering on the bike.
Right.
You know, it was very hilly, and during the run, you know, which is a major issue with actually long distance or endurance sports, is having GI upset, like
Yes. Yes.
gastrointestinal. So I had GI upset. I could not retain food. You know,
Yeah.
my body was all confused because we were working out and eating at the same time. It's like, where's the energy going? Are we using the energy to work out, or are we using it to digest the food? Whatever. So every mile on the marathon run, I was going to the porta potty because
Oh
I could
man.
not retain food. And it was just like my body was weak, but I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to give up. And so through the journey, I just kept smiling. I was waving at people. Oh, you're doing a great job, whatever, you know. And after a while, I started just talking to myself, you know, through each stride. I can, I will, I must, it's done. I can, I will, I must. Because you got to make it fun for yourself. It's all about changing the state, right? Interrupting the pattern, changing the state, putting yourself in a peak emotional state, and keeping the focus along and just keep going, just keep moving. You know, and
Right.
I finished, and I threw a big party at the end. Like, just how much I danced, and I was so excited, you know, and it's become one of my milestone experiences to date.
Yeah.
Starting from wanting to overcome a fear, taking steps towards it, having people who pushed me and supported me along the way, having a plan, working the plan, and allowing myself to just be adaptable on race day, and success
Yeah.
was waiting for me at the end.
Wow, that's incredible story, man. You're like the happy David Goggins of like grinding through there by just saying positive stuff and just really getting at it. And you know, the process, how you explained your thought process around it was incredible. That you started off with fear,
Yeah.
that your family and that story is very empowering, you know, especially, and I'm sorry, you know, you lost your friend and that was such a traumatic experience, but that's such a great example to show people that tragedy and things that you fear could really propel you to do things that are inspirational. And that story is inspirational. I myself am inspired by it. I don't know if I'm going to do a triathlon or anything or swimming for, you know, for an event, but those events that put us there in those uncomfortable areas really teach us a lot about yourself.
Right.
And I think the resiliency that you taught or you learned about yourself doing the swimming, hiring people, and really working through a program and really grinding through that. So you did that all in a year. And I know like triathlon training takes a long time, and being an athlete like that, like it takes a lot.
It
Like
does.
I'm a competitive bodybuilder. My ex-wife was a triathlete, Ironman. She done 3 Ironman, but you know, it's demanding. And how do we balance that with being, you know, of course we could just say try to generate energy as much as we can, but we still all have responsibility of, you know, pursuing our education. Like you have, you know, what is it, 3 degrees, 2 degree?
Yep.
You have 3 degrees
3
that you
degrees.
have
Yep.
while, you know, performing with athletics and
Working a
all
full
that.
time, have a wife, a family, and kids, have a
Yeah.
job.
You have the
And
real thing.
yep. And so, you know, when I think about that, a couple of things come to mind. One is that we're more capable than we think we are.
More capable.
If we can, yeah, we're more capable than we think we are. If we can let ourselves do, we can actually do more than we think we are. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is, if we look at our life as a balancing act, you know, of a scale, sometimes some seasons of our life, some things will lean more on the others than the other, one side than
Mm-hmm.
the other, because the other parts of the life, we've been able to get it to a point where it could be somewhat in a cruise control. What do I mean? When you're building a house, you are not doing the foundation the same way that you're doing the roof.
Right.
Right? You're not doing all the walls the same time you're doing all the doors. At each moment in time, something takes your focus.
Yes.
Whereas others, there's kind of like a system in place to keep it balanced. Right? And so that is the balancing act, right? Where things that need the attention, you'll be able to give it to it while you're growing the others. And
Yes.
so for me, was it easy? No, it was not easy. I mean, I was working out 10 to 20 hours a week, right? And it was
And then you got
interesting.
recovery. You got recovery as well too.
Yes, yes. And actually, I remember one of the days during my training season, we had a Unleash the Power Within virtual event, right? And I needed to be at the studio by 9 a.m., but I also needed to do a 6-hour bike workout. So I woke up around 2:30, 3 a.m., went up for a 75-mile bike ride
Wow.
from Palm Beach, Florida to Pompano Beach and back, was done, showered, and showed up in the studio and was dancing all day on stage, cranking up the energy.
Let me ask you this. So I get in these like very like high vibrational states where I like produce a lot of like work and a lot of energy and excited. But then, like I said, there's that recovery where you're like, and then you kind of like crash a little bit. Did you have that while you're when you're trying to like dance, work out, you also have like when you talk about like athletes and stuff, you have to have ample enough recovery as well to go back and train and bring out energy. So do you have any like protocol or insight on that?
Yes, I mean, so a couple of things. One, you gotta hydrate, right?
Hydrate.
Hydrate, lots of water. So I hydrate. Second is I do foam rolling, what is called myofascial release.
Yeah.
So it's almost like massaging the muscles so that you reduce delayed onset of muscle soreness, right? So
DOMS, yeah.
you're moving the
Yeah.
lactic acid around.
How's your
Stretch,
sleep? How about your sleep?
stretch. Okay, so fantastic question. In the books, sleep is important, right?
I
I
sleep more
agree.
than I think I sleep more than I should.
Honestly, personally, sleep has not been a strength of mine, and I would admit that to people who know me. So can I do with more sleep based on what the books recommend overall? Yes. But for somehow, I've been able to balance or get by with getting just enough sleep. So
Yeah.
that's definitely one area which I wouldn't say copy me.
It's because your vibrations are so high, you don't have to sleep as much.
But I would say, in my experience, the more energy you expend, the more energy you create, right?
Yeah.
So there is that sweet spot where when you're doing something you enjoy, you're putting a positive emotional state to it, and you're moving your body. It's almost like you are. Some people call it runner's high. Well, it could be anything. It could be runners high, it could be dancers high, it could be athletes high, it could be anything. It's like the body is just releasing endorphins, dopamine, serotonins, like all this, feel good
Yeah.
hormones to you that you just feel like you're being regenerated on the spot to be able to push. At the end, you may crash and need a lot of time for recovery, but while you are in the activity, you're just able to go, go, go.
Yeah. I think that's called like being in the zone or the
Yeah,
flow
yeah,
state,
the
which
flow.
yeah, I've been
Yeah,
studying a lot of that.
Mihaly, Zenti Mihaly.
Yeah, his Professor Mihai Senchik's.
Senchik
Yes,
Mihaly.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. There's another guy I study too that he's been putting a lot of research in flow. Is Steve? You probably heard him, Stephen Kotler. He got
Yeah.
the Flow Institute, but I like that as well too. But I also understand that for me, I have a recovery phase, and I recover a lot more. I need more like ample sleep, than. But I also understand that when I'm sleeping, I'm also recovering as well too. And I
Yep.
spoke to another coach is like you actually think of recovery as like active recovery, whether it be
Yeah.
stretching, doing a sauna. For me, it's restful sleep gets me kind of like the best energy where I'm awake, I'm alert, and like strong because I spend a fair amount of time lifting weights. I've been lifting weights for that. That's like my passion, like
Yeah.
how yours is that the dancing. I love to lift weights and bodybuild.
Mine
That's
is
what
just
gets
movement.
it's movement, and it's also like for me it's like a thought process of physical manifestation where like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my workout, how to put it together, how to eat right before I go to the training session, and then get the result that I want. And then each day I make those little incremental successes at the gym, and that kind of carries me over and over. I think, anybody that's listening and watching to like our conversation is starting and always continuously doing something. Massive
Yes.
action could be small actions every day that leads to massive action that looks like big action over time. And I think
Small,
with
consistent actions over time.
small consistent action over time,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, that's like, for me, is one of my foundational like philosophies and concept, is just these small little things that we continuously do. Even if
Yeah.
we stop, if we stop working out for like a year, pick back right up. It's a good way
And
to,
again,
yeah, just pick it right back up. But yeah, man, we could talk about this all day about athletics and
one
personal
thing I want to
development.
add though is also, I mean, there are sleep hacks, right? Where a 2 hour power nap or even a 20-minute power nap with headphones listening to binaural beats helps the body drop quickly into a deep sleep phase,
Yeah, I
right?
know a little bit about that. That's what I do. Like in the afternoons, if I wake up early, like 5 or 6, and I do work, and then in the afternoon I get kind of like tired, I would do something like that, where like an hour and a half. It's like a yoga nidra
Yep.
type of nap, where you're resting but still kind of alert and still processing information and changing, or working through things in your mind. That's what I
Yep.
do. I think it take it as a part of my day where I actually unload and do that active rest and start to organize things in my mind.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
yes, I practice that
And
since
I like yin yoga too.
yeah.
Yeah, because they're the deep restorative stretches, which helps the body relax, but also improves circulation.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your coaching journey and like what your business that you have now, and how your degrees added up to what you have, because you have a lot of stuff and you brought it all together. That's what's the most interesting part is, because I've done that too myself, where I got an undergraduate, I've done some bodybuilding, some training, some nutrition coaching, and now bringing the spiritual and life coaching all together. Let's talk about how you're kind of wrapping everything up together, and I'll pull up your website for you to show
Absolutely.
everybody.
And so here, when you pull up my website, you can hit the one-on-one coaching to show that, which kind of puts a little bit of the
Right here,
story of the background. So up in the no, if you go back up where you are,
right
you
here.
see speaker one-on-one coaching right there. Um,
Yes.
so I mean, for me, the way it's come up together is I have a passion to help people. I have a passion to help people surpass limiting beliefs to move to the next level of what they can achieve, because that's been my journey. My journey has been being able to realize what seemed impossible, right? I talked about the Ironman story, going from non-swimmer to doing an Ironman. I talked about how I went from being a participant in the audience at a Tony event to becoming the one on stage leading the dance. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of my journey, and I'm originally from Nigeria. That's where I grew up, so I also come from an immigrant story, right? Coming from Nigeria to now living here in the US, making a positive contribution and helping people. So in different ways, it's been a story of having a vision, and setting my eyes on the vision, and just, working the plan, keeping my eyes on the focus, believing in it, and gradually getting there. And so that's primarily what I help my clients do, right? Is to take control of their life and emotions in terms of what is it you want to achieve, what is standing in the way of you achieving it, and how can we close the gap. And so I
Mm-hmm.
help unravel the blocks, the obstacles, so that they can overcome the obstacles. And I'm both the cheerleader and the guide along the way to getting them to their goal. And,
Yeah.
and thinking about my story, to tell a little bit about it, I started out in microbiology, right? So I knew I always wanted to help people. And so I was encouraged to become a medical doctor because, you say, "Oh, I'm a doctor. You want to help people? Yeah, great. Go do medicine."
Yeah.
And so, in my third year, I studied a lot in the microbiology and the biomedical sciences. And in my third year, my junior year, I recognized that I wanted to help people, but I also did not like the hospital environment.
Right.
Right. I
I could
felt more
see that.
connected to people. And so I wanted something where I could be part of people's lives through the different journey. And what my, teenager self told myself then was, people only go to the hospital when they're sick. When they're well, they
Hmm.
don't want to go back. I want to be involved in a way where I can celebrate my clients' joys as well as help them through the challenges.
Yeah.
And coaching for me has been that, where when there's a problem, we work it out. And when there's no problem and we just want to set a goal for something bigger, we do that together too. And
Yeah.
so gradually, each step along the way has taken me through that. So when I then came to the US, I worked as a summer camp counselor in Logan, Ohio, through the International YMCA, helping young people through leadership development in outdoor experiences. It was a camp owned by the United Methodist Church, so there was some Christian teachings to it as well. Overall, it was really just helping them grow,
Yeah.
in the outdoors. And then eventually I worked as an international student and scholar advisor at the University of Michigan. Same thing, helping foreign nationals who came to the US to either study, teach, or research to navigate their life here in the US versus their home countries. So for me, it's a combination of helping people grow, teaching skills that help people navigate different, milestones or areas in their lives, and having a vision of where you want to go, and kind of just being your guide along the way. Because that's been my journey, that's been the life that I've lived, and that's what I'm able to help people to do. And this is really what excites me.
Yeah, truly inspiring. It's a life of service that you've kind of instilled from your beginnings and everything, from coming from your country to coming here. Was that something that was somebody that inspired you from the beginning? Was it a family member or anything before you came and started all this, or was there like a inspiration like when you were a child that kind of sparked this whole thing?
It
Because there's
wasn't
always like
inspiration.
that there's always like an origin story of like somebody who started it. Is it
It
a
was an
family member?
inspiration actually, because so the inspiration was growing up. I realized that I became the person that was the go-to friend, confident,
Hmm.
that my family and friends talked to when they were navigating either difficult scenarios or were wanting to go towards a goal. It's like, "Hey,
Hmm.
Damilare, can we talk about this? Hey, Damilare, you're so wise beyond your years. What do you think about this?" And so we have those conversations. And for me, over and over again, it became a thing where I was that, call it, um that's
The
the word I'm
person.
looking for. Yeah, no, but that's a word. When people say, "Oh, let's bounce heads together," brainstorming. That's it. You know, but also too, in difficult times, people felt safe in my presence because I was able to give that listening ear and the connectional energy where they felt vulnerable and authentic to share, which created also a space of healing just
Yeah.
through empathy, just through being present, just through listening. And so these were skills that I realized growing up I had naturally. So
Hmm.
it only made sense to me that I look for an opportunity to actually learn more and develop that. The other thing is, I was very fascinated about behavioral psychology. It's like, what makes us do the things we do, or what makes people tick? Why did this person choose yellow versus red? Okay, well, here's a candy store and somebody picked blue, a chocolate versus, a lollipop and things like that. So for me, I found it exciting. So bringing it all together, it was really about, this is a power to overall heal. When you look at it in a much more deeper way, looking at a mission that is greater than ourselves or who we are. For me, all of it is just helping people heal themselves to be able to enter into the fullness of who they could become.
Right.
And so when we heal those limitations, we become more of what our soul came here to do.
Yeah.
And all those outcomes, all those goals, all those, even when it's business, right? Business, financial, emotional, relationship, whatever it is, it's really about the expansion of ourselves into our fullness.
Yeah. That's
And
so
that's my
good.
mission. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good, man. I appreciate you sharing, and you got a lot of wisdom, and I think that's who you became is more of you. I think you started off and then just having people and being naturally who you are organically. And similar to me as well too, like I've always sought out wisdom, not so much like trends or anything, but like wisdom and trying to help. And the message of healing is such a powerful thing. When I first started doing personal development, I didn't realize what I was turning myself into. But then naturally, it was just I enjoyed personal development. I enjoy helping other people and teaching things that I was learning, and then naturally, it just becomes who you are. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we talk about. I think it's very powerful in this podcast is that it becomes your identity, right? It becomes like your business, your relationships. You start to gravitate towards people that vibrate on the same way. You bring same people into who you're working with, or you're collaborating with, or who you're influenced with, which is it's a very powerful thing that you've stuck to who you are. I feel like you're very blessed in that aspect where you've been so grounded in who you are, and sharing this message with you of hard work. All this, what you've done is extremely hard work. I can tell you, I've been going to the Tony Robbins coaching programs. It's a lot of work. Like I haven't gotten 3 degrees or even done an Ironman, and being amongst your presence is inspiring, and to see what human potential is capable of once you start to transform the mind. And our conversation today is there are people, leaders. I consider you a leader, in the personal development, the life coaching, and developing this and really kind of carving out that niche for yourself and for me as well too. I'm trying to carve out my niche in this realm before we end the show. And I know you got a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure you got a lot of stuff cooking in the background. You also done a TED talk. We haven't even talked about that. I'm not sure if you want to talk about that and some of your future plans and growth as well too, because I think part of the podcast and what I like to inspire people is when you start to put things in the air, when you start to put things in social media, it tends to eventually happen.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that you're working on and updating or want to fill us in, to anticipate. I know you got something cooking. I can see it in your face.
Sure. So yes, I did do a TEDx, and the title of my TEDx was "How to Boost Your Energy, Emotions, and Productivity."
I did watch it.
And
I watched that, and I want to attend some of your classes as well too. It seems so energetic, but I did see your TED talk, and which is cool too. Let's talk a little bit about that if you have
sure,
some
I,
time.
I
Yeah,
do want to share. I do want to share about that, and and we talked a little bit in the beginning about how movement helps us transform our emotional state, and so the purpose of the TEDx talk and the speaking is how that could be brought into our daily lives and into our walk, right? And so part of what I'm looking to do more is to get on the stage to speak to corporate organizations and like conferences and conventions and lead them
mm-hmm.
through short movement experiences where they can see right away how movement could transform their energy and how they could bring that energy into their work, and as a result, more productivity, more productivity, more sales, more business profits. Because when they're in a high peak emotional state, then they do better, then they work, they're in an emotional boost. So
Yeah, I
creating that.
totally. So I subscribe to that. Raising your vibrations, you definitely are more productive or more energetic to do the work that you're enjoying, right?
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
tell myself all the time, like information is everywhere, right? You can Google, you can use AI and all that, you can get information. I want to give people more than information. I want to give an experience. I want people to feel, see, hear, know, in our interaction, what is being talked about, what they're hearing, so that they can take that with them and use that. So I'm looking into doing more speaking events, and that's something I'm putting out in the universe. That's something I'm reaching out to people for that. Also, workshops and training, because when we dance together or simply just move to music, that positive emotional state has also benefits of bonding as a group. Because when we dance together, the body releases serotonin and oxytocin, which are happy and bonding hormones. And
It connects
so
each other, right?
connects to each other. And so that can be used as team building exercises for employee engagement to drive results in companies. Because when the team feel connected to each other, they collaborate better. And when they
Yeah.
collaborate better, they drive more results for the company. So I'm open to being called to do team building workshops using movement and speaking, also employee wellness programs, that's known, right? Because then you get the exercise benefits of movement. So these are some of like the new things I'm launching, and I'm reaching out to people in my network. And of course, anybody hearing this who would like me to come into their event to speak and demonstrate with the participants or do an in-house workshop with their employees, I'll be happy to do that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excellent. So you're always pushing yourself and growing yourself, but in the right direction. So I
Yes.
think that's fantastic. I'm sure it'll happen. With your manifestation powers and everything, putting it together. But yes, I think we're gonna wrap up the podcast, and I enjoy your time having coming here on the podcast and sharing your experience. You got a wealth of wisdom, and I'm sure you're gonna be able to manifest whatever you just put out there in the universe. And movement and dancing, I got a lot from this myself, and really embodying that, from being around you is just like a vibrational state when we're talking about syncing up with folks that have the same vision, but we might be doing things a little bit different, but the vision is to help and heal each other as
Yep.
well too.
Yep.
I
And
think
heal the
healing is,
collective eventually.
yeah, heal the collective, and put us in this positive trajectory. I think for me, my mission, and I'll share a little bit as well too, and what I want to create with like the podcast and my coaching and my influence is teaching more about personal development, of course, about the psychology side, where you actually don't have to go to the hospital to get medication or anything. And like I said, like for me and you, I always wanted to help people as well too. Like at first it started into fitness, and then it started to nutrition, and on the line everything was coaching somebody to get somebody to change and to overlook or look at something in a different way. And I think that's what we do as coaches, as leaders, is bring this message of healing and helping each other, no matter what it is, right? It
Right.
could be swimming, it could be dancing, it could be lifting weights, it could be podcasting, speaking. Those are all forms, to me, I believe, is a form of expression and sharing our own experience and helping other people. And like I said, the podcast for me, it's a healing process for me, because I get to share experience. I get people like your experience as well too, and I get to learn from you as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it's an inspiring podcast. And before we head out or anything, I don't have any more questions. I think you did a great job of answering everything. I thought this podcast is going to be amazing. I think I'm going to share some clips for everybody and get it out there. And I really want to help you, and hopefully we can share our network and the communities together. Okay. So
Absolutely. I would love
yeah.
that. Two quick things before we go from my side. One is, I've shared a lot, so you have access to like my website,
Yeah.
my socials and all of that. So people can definitely reach out to me, even if you're just thinking about a question you have or something you would like to know and understand more, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to respond and help with that. The
Yeah, he's
second
very
thing,
responsive.
yeah. The second thing, which is more of an encouragement to anyone listening, whether or not we get to work together now in the future, is if it crosses your mind as a dream or a possibility, believe that all you need to realize that is within reach.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, you just need to take the first step, right? So it may not happen tomorrow. Like I said, from when I thought about dancing on stage to actually being on stage was almost 3 years, right? However, the time, the resources, once you can imagine it or see it, then it's possible. You just need to start taking steps towards it. So that's it. I'll end with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Best of luck with everything, and stay blessed. You're a blessed person, and we're going to bless everybody with our energy, okay?
All right. Thank you so much, Sam Nang.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right.